For over 480 years, the face of Anne Boleyn has haunted historians, artists, writers, and the public imagination alike. Unlike many queens, princesses, and noblewomen of Tudor England, Anne's true visage was systematically obliterated, painted over, or distorted, leaving behind only whispers, exaggerated stories, and posthumous recreations. This was no accident of time, weather, or neglect. It was the deliberate product of political necessity, the art of memory sculpted by fear, ambition, and propaganda. Henry VIII, the king who sought in and both desire and dynastic security, saw the threat of her charisma, intelligence, and influence over him as dangerous. The consequences of their turbulent union would not only change the course of English history but also cast Anne into a shadow where her physical appearance became a battleground for memory itself. To even ask what Anne Boleyn really looked like is to ask far more than a question of aesthetics. It is to interrogate the ways in which history erases, mythologizes, and punishes women whose ambition and intellect threaten patriarchal power. Anne's life was deeply intertwined with her physical presence. Contemporary diplomats, courtiers, and chroniclers often remarked less on her beauty, in the modern sense, and more on her presence, her intelligence, her eyes that could command attention or unsettle men in the royal court. The allure of Anne Boleyn was not a simple combination of pale skin, black hair, or a slender frame, though these details appear repeatedly in written accounts. It was the magnetism of a woman who knew her power, who moved gracefully in a world designed to confine her, and who wielded wit, charm, and sharp political intelligence as deftly as any sword. Portraits, whether contemporary or created decades later, were constrained by the limits of artistic convention, often influenced by propaganda, political pressure, or the whims of their patrons. Some show her as stern and almost severe, perhaps reflecting her enemies' attempts to vilify her. Others romanticize her, presenting her as an ethereal, tragic figure in the aftermath of her execution. None can be fully trusted as truth. The exhibition at Hever Castle, the first of its kind in the world, takes on this very challenge, to peel back centuries of distortion, rumor, and rumor-induced artifice, and attempt to reconstruct a face grounded in historical probability. Modern technology, including forensic analysis, facial reconstruction methods used in archaeology, and meticulous examination of surviving records, allows historians to piece together clues from disparate sources, letters, ambassadorial reports, wardrobe inventories, and even court gossip. By analyzing these fragments, experts hope to recreate not a fantasy version of Anne but a plausible representation of her appearance as a real woman, alive in a world that sought to render her powerless and erase her identity from memory. Yet even the process of reconstruction cannot fully capture what made Anne Boleyn remarkable. She was, above all, a force of presence. Her face, her gestures, her voice, and her intellect combined to produce a political and personal influence that terrified a king. Her legacy was never merely visual, it was enacted in the dramatic choices she made, the way she challenged a powerful monarch, and the child she bore who would later become Elizabeth I, one of England's most iconic rulers. The mystery of her face, therefore, is inseparable from the mystery of her life, her agency, and the political storm that surrounded her. In seeking her visage, we are also seeking a deeper understanding of a world in which female power was both irresistible and dangerous, where memory could be weaponized, and where history itself could be rewritten to serve the ambitions of men in power. This exhibition, and the scholarship behind it, serves as a reminder of the fragility of identity in a world governed by authority and fear. It demonstrates how appearances are political, how women are judged, and how power seeks to control not only lives but legacies. Anne's face becomes symbolic, a mirror reflecting not just her own courage and tragedy but the ways in which history treats women who defy societal expectations. To confront the question of what she truly looked like is, ultimately, to confront the broader question of how truth survives in the face of suppression, how memory can be distorted, and how the stories of women, particularly women of power, can be recovered from centuries of erasure. Anne Boleyn's image was not simply lost to time, it was systematically and deliberately erased, manipulated, and reimagined by those in power who feared her influence. After her execution on May 19, 1536, Henry VIII ordered that all references to her be destroyed, a practice known as damnatio memoriae, or condemnation of memory. Portraits were removed from the walls of royal palaces, private collections, and chapels, her name was stricken from records where possible, and courtiers who had been close to her were warned to speak cautiously, lest they risk royal wrath. The very act of erasing her face was a political tool, a way for Henry to reinforce his authority, signal his mercy and ruthlessness, and assert that the decisions he had made, even executing a queen, were sanctioned by God. In a court where visual representation was one of the most powerful forms of influence, controlling Anne's image meant controlling the narrative of her life, her supposed transgressions, and the legacy of her daughter Elizabeth. Her likeness, once a tool of attraction, ambition, and political maneuvering, became a liability. It was dangerous for the king's enemies, or even his own people, to remember her as she truly was. This deliberate destruction of Anne's image was not merely an act of cruelty, it was a reflection of the broader Tudor understanding of power, gender, and politics. In 16th-century England, a queen's face was inseparable from her authority and moral standing. To appear commanding, confident, or charismatic could be interpreted as manipulative, threatening, or sinful. Anne had achieved extraordinary influence over Henry, reshaping religion, court politics, and succession. Her power, exercised through intellect, wit, and strategic charm, was revolutionary for a woman of her time, and thus deeply threatening to the patriarchal structures that governed both private life and the state. By destroying her image, Henry and his allies attempted to neutralize not just the woman, but the idea that a queen could wield power independently, shaping the politics and culture of the kingdom through her personality, intelligence, and allure. The resulting portraits, surviving only in copies or reconstructions decades later, tell a story of distortion and propaganda. Artists were commissioned, often by individuals with political motives, to create representations that reflected the narrative Henry wanted to cement, and as a seductress, a temptress, or a morally corrupt woman who deserved her fate. Some portrayals exaggerated her features to make her appear sinister or unnatural, feeding rumors of deformity, witchcraft, or spiritual corruption. Others softened her expression after her death, romanticizing her into a tragic figure, often to evoke sympathy, or to align with Protestant or Catholic agendas that wished to depict her as a martyr for faith or a cautionary example of ambition gone wrong. In either case, what survives is not her true likeness, but a series of images shaped by fear, political expedience, and centuries of reinterpretation. The very multiplicity of these portraits underscores the instability of historical memory, how one person can be painted, literally and figuratively, in multiple contradictory ways. Beyond visual art, Anne's memory was attacked in written records. Chronicles, letters, and ambassadorial reports were selectively preserved, censored, or reinterpreted. Those who spoke of her favorably risked suspicion, those who propagated negative stories often had incentives from the crown. This literary erasure functioned in tandem with the removal of her physical likeness, creating a vacuum in which myths could thrive. The infamous claims of Anne's supposed sexual indiscretions, alleged deformities, and treason were circulated widely, often decades after her death, creating an enduring caricature that overshadowed the historical woman. For centuries, Anne was remembered less for her intellect, political acumen, and resilience, and more as a cautionary tale of feminine ambition, a narrative carefully cultivated through the intersection of image, story, and selective memory. Modern historians and the exhibition at Hever Castle now confront this challenge directly, using forensic science, facial analysis, and meticulous historical research to reclaim Anne's identity from centuries of distortion. By piecing together the fragments of contemporary descriptions, clothing records, and surviving portraits, they attempt to reveal a woman who existed beyond the shadow of myth. The process highlights a profound lesson about power. When authority feels threatened, it seeks to control not only action but appearance, rewriting reality to protect its narrative. Anne's erased face, then, is not merely a historical curiosity, it is a testament to the ways political power seeks to dominate perception and memory, to dictate who is remembered and how. In examining why Anne's image was deliberately destroyed, we uncover a chilling truth: her life and death were inseparable from her visual and symbolic presence. Every gesture, glance, and expression she ever displayed could be interpreted as a political threat. In a world dominated by monarchs who equated power with divine sanction, a queen's appearance was not a personal matter, it was a political instrument, a tool for persuasion or a weapon against the state. Anne's destruction as a figure in memory reflects the fragility of female power in a patriarchal society, and the lengths to which rulers will go to control narrative and influence. Her face, once commanding and alive, became a ghost, haunting both history and the imagination, a reminder that memory itself can be weaponized in the service of authority. Anne Boleyn's allure was never just skin-deep, and understanding how her contemporaries described her is essential to reconstructing her appearance. Ambassadors, courtiers, and chroniclers wrote that Anne was not classically beautiful by the standards of her time, yet she captivated everyone she met. Descriptions focus on her dark eyes, expressive brows, and sharp, intelligent expression that seemed to challenge or enchant depending on the observer's disposition. These records suggest a woman whose power lay in her presence, posture, and demeanor rather than symmetrical perfection. Tudor beauty ideals emphasized pale skin, refined hands, slender necks, and elegant movement, and embodied these ideals, but what truly set her apart was her ability to command attention with confidence and intellect. Henry VIII himself was captivated not by her appearance alone but by the combination of wit, charm, and political audacity. Her charisma, a fusion of beauty and brain, became a dangerous weapon in a court where women were expected to be seen but not heard. Contemporary accounts also hint at subtlety in her expressions, a half-smile that could disarm critics, a glance that could unsettle powerful men. These intangible qualities explain why, despite centuries of distorted imagery, Anne remains so compelling. Her power was projected through her body, her face, and her gestures, creating a presence that portraits alone cannot capture. One of the most enduring myths about Anne Boleyn is the alleged existence of a sixth finger on her right hand, a detail that purportedly made her seem unnatural or even witch-like. This legend emerged decades after her death, often cited in sensationalized accounts and used as justification for her execution. However, contemporary evidence is non-existent. No ambassador, courtier, or eyewitness mentioned this deformity. The myth illustrates the lengths to which society and historians later went to frame Anne as morally and physically abnormal, a common tactic in demonizing women who dared to wield influence. It also underscores the danger of historical gossip and propaganda. Once a false image is introduced, it becomes difficult to remove. The exhibition at Hever Castle addresses this myth, highlighting how Anne's supposed physical defects were invented as tools of political and moral storytelling. In reality, Anne's appearance reflected a woman of intelligence, sophistication, and command, qualities that were far more threatening to male authority than any imagined physical imperfection. Despite the systematic destruction of her likeness, several portraits, copies, and sketches attributed to Anne Boleyn survive. Art historians have examined recurring elements across these depictions: an oval face, a long neck, alert eyes, a poised and dignified expression. Differences among the images often reveal more about the painter's intent or political context than about Anne herself. Some portraits exaggerate her features to depict her as a villainous seductress, while others romanticize her as a tragic victim. By comparing stylistic choices, pigments, and the layering of paint, researchers identify common features that likely reflect the woman herself. This process also uncovers the intentions of her posthumous interpreters. Each painting is a political statement, a reflection of the fears, desires, and biases of those commissioning it. Anne's reconstructed visage, pieced together from multiple sources, suggests a woman of striking presence, intelligence, and poise, a figure who commanded attention not through superficial beauty but through sheer force of personality. Anne Boleyn's presence was amplified by her fashion choices, which were carefully curated to project intelligence, independence, and status. She famously favored black gowns, French-inspired designs, and her iconic B necklace, which became synonymous with her identity. Clothing in Tudor England was a form of communication. Color, fabric, and cut conveyed social standing, political alliances, and personal ambition. Anne's wardrobe choices allowed her to assert authority subtly while still adhering to the expectations of a court dominated by men. By analyzing inventories, sketches, and accounts of her dress, historians reconstruct how Anne's style shaped her image in life, complementing her facial features and physical bearing. Fashion became an extension of her persona, a silent yet potent form of self-expression that reinforced her presence in the royal court and contributed to the fascination surrounding her visage centuries later. Recent advances in forensic science and historical reconstruction have allowed experts to attempt a more grounded representation of Anne Boleyn's appearance. While no skull survives, researchers use familial genetics, written descriptions, and artistic evidence to model facial structure. Techniques such as 3D modeling, anthropological comparison with relatives, and careful analysis of clothing and posture offer plausible insights into how she may have looked. This method respects historical context while acknowledging limitations. The aim is not to create a definitive image, but to bring a real woman back from centuries of distortion. These reconstructions remind us that Anne's identity is more than rumor or legend. She was a human being with distinct features, style, and expression, a woman whose appearance reflected both her personality and the political pressures she navigated daily. Anne Boleyn's visage carries significance far beyond art or historical curiosity. It represents the broader struggle of women whose identities are erased by power, whose images are manipulated to reinforce political or social narratives. Reconstructing her face is an act of historical justice. It allows the modern viewer to see Anne as she might have been, rather than as a caricature shaped by fear, misogyny, and propaganda. Her story resonates with contemporary audiences because it speaks to enduring questions about gender, authority, and memory, how societies judge and attempt to control women, how reputation can be weaponized, and how legacy is preserved or obliterated. Anne's reconstructed appearance challenges viewers to reconsider what they think they know about history, power, and femininity, while humanizing a figure long reduced to myth and scandal. Ultimately, Anne Boleyn's significance cannot be measured in physical beauty alone. She was a revolutionary in subtle ways. She challenged religious authority, navigated court politics with intelligence, and became the mother of Elizabeth I, one of England's most remarkable monarchs. The obsession with her appearance reflects society's discomfort with powerful women who refuse to conform. By examining her life and reconstructed visage, historians emphasize that her enduring influence lies not in how she looked, but in her courage, intellect, and capacity to alter history. Anne's face is symbolic, a lens through which we explore the tensions between gender, power, and historical memory. Understanding her is not about satisfying curiosity, it is about recognizing the real woman behind centuries of myth and propaganda. The search for Anne Boleyn's face teaches a profound lesson: history is often written, rewritten, and erased by those in power. Faces, identities, and narratives are weaponized, and truth can be obscured by fear, politics, or societal prejudice. Yet Anne's story reminds us that even the most ruthless attempts to destroy a legacy cannot fully succeed. Her life, her influence, and her memory endure, not as a passive subject of legend, but as a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and female agency. By reclaiming her image, we honor her humanity, confront the injustices of history, and challenge ourselves to question what is remembered, who controls memory, and why. Anne Boleyn's face is not just a portrait, it is a mirror reflecting the power of history, the fragility of reputation, and the enduring strength of a woman who shaped her era against all odds.